Morning, Vicky. Nice to see you today, and I'm delighted to be part of your launch of your latest book, The Familists. And I'm looking forward to having a little chat with you about it this morning, just to get some background on it. It's your fourth book in the series. Would you like to show us all four, please?
Here's the fourth one, and here's the
other three: Castilians, Conversos, Apostates, and now Familists. Would you like to give me a little bit of background to the series for anyone who's coming into Familists not knowing what the background to the story is?
Yes, so the overall series is called the Seton Chronicles. So inevitably, almost, it's about a family called the Setons and their wider connections. And the series is set in the middle of the 16th century. So it's a time of huge religious upheaval. And inevitably, the family are caught up in it. I think it would be almost impossible to live during that period and not be caught up, because countries are changing religion or trying to change religion with remarkable, terrifying determination. So the first in series, which is the Castilians, I didn't start out trying to write some set of novels that actually have ended up spanning Europe, is set in my hometown of St Andrews. And I wrote it because I just loved the story of the siege of the castle there in 1546. And I loved, and still do, going down the siege tunnel, which was dug out of rock then. And so I started the story about a brother and sister just caught up in the siege. And then I got to the end of it, and people said to me, well, what happens next? And I thought, oh, what does happen next? And so the second book, The Conversos, is mostly set in Antwerp, but it's also partly set on the galleys, because one of my characters from the end of the Castilians ends up a galley slave. And Conversos, I'd never heard the word before, are Jews who were forcibly converted to Christianity.
So you have put your family, your fictional family, into the middle of that setting.
Yes. Well, one character in particular ends up married to a converso, living in Antwerp and not understanding why they're being treated with suspicion. Mm-hmm. So even though it's second, third generations since they were forcibly converted into Christianity, and they've no knowledge of anything but Christianity, they're still never treated as equals. And you couldn't be Jewish in Antwerp in those days. You could only be Catholic. That was the only safe option.
Right. So what happens next then in book 3?
So book 3, the apostates, the conversos have to leave Antwerp, which is generally what happened. They have to flee Antwerp, and they start moving increasingly towards Venice. So I've got one part of the family en route to Venice, and they eventually arrive in Venice, which is very welcoming of Catholics and tolerates Jews. It's where the word ghetto comes from. So they have a Jewish community in Venice, but you don't want to be a Protestant in Venice. And en route to Venice, they end up in Geneva. Geneva is a good place for my Protestant character, much less good for my character who's Catholic and her sister-in-law who's busy quietly reconverting to Judaism.
Okay, so you've got lots of movement in terms of the different religions that are around at the time and the divisions between them. Mm. What was the inspiration for this book that you're launching today, The Familists?
So The Familists it's about, I suppose it's essentially about family and how do you resolve these differences between you. And all families have differences. This family, it's just very strong differences of faith, but still maintain that family connection, still maintain that love and loyalty of family. And familists are a very specific group. Their leader, I suppose he could be called, was a guy called Nicholas, and he's speaking around again in this period in the 1550s, and one of my characters happens to be in the Frankfurt Book Fair, And amazingly, the Frankfurt Book Fair ran from centuries actually before then, so it was already established. And Nicholas is there promoting his new book. And he's got a Familists are, as I said, very specific group, sometimes known as the family of love in England. And they've got some fairly strong followers in the Low Countries. So Christopher Plantin, the famous printer, Abraham Ortilis, the map maker, they are followers of Familists. And my character knows Ortilis and Plantin, who have small roles in the book. And he's kind of interested in what Nicholas is saying. And essentially what Nicholas is saying is all these rituals around religion, whether you have mass, whether you kneel to pray, whatever it is you're doing, whether you're Catholic or Protestant or Jewish or Muslim, is immaterial. And you can go ahead and follow them. But actually what's key is your connection with God and your connection with the family. And by family, family in those days meant something wider than it means to us. It means the family that live within your household. So it includes your servants. And traditionally in these family groups, amongst the Familists, they would sit down at night and have dinner together with the servants, and they would talk about God and about life. And so my character is struggling with the fact that he originally was a Jew, his sister's reconverted, his wife is a Catholic, his brother-in-law is a Protestant. What can he do to connect them? And he's drawn to this whole idea and this whole belief of familism. So that's where the titles came from.
Right, leads me to ask, why did you choose that then for the title of the book?
Because for me, it encapsulates the strength of family and family loyalty. And that, at the end of the day, for all my characters, I think becomes the most important thing. Perhaps not always.
Okay.
Faith is always going to be very, very vital to them.
Right. Now, you've got lots of locations in this series. You've got Scotland, you've got Italy, you've got Geneva, you've got Constantinople, you've got Venice, you've got Antwerp. Which was your favourite location and why?
I think certainly in writing this book, we spend a little bit of time in Edinburgh. John Knox is in Edinburgh on a brief visit at this time, trying to avoid getting caught and burned. Actually, it's quite safe because Mary of Guise, who's the regent, does not support burning heretics, so it's not that unsafe. But anyway, for a little bit of the book, we are back in Edinburgh. And it was actually quite nice to come back to Scotland and write about something that I'm very, very familiar with. But Constantinople was very interesting for me to discover that the connections between the Ottoman Empire and Europe were incredibly strong. It had a huge influence on what was happening in Europe. And Henry of France, the King of France, the King of Philip of Spain, and the Pope, they're all very concerned what Suleiman, who's the Sultan at the time, is up to. So how those politics interweaved with what was going on in Europe, I found absolutely fascinating. And just learning about Istanbul and visiting it. So
I was about to say, did you visit all the locations? And if you did, how important do you feel visiting them is? And if you didn't manage to get them, how did you compensate for that?
There's always a debate for me about how much you do need to visit the locations, because I'm writing about stuff that happened 500 years ago, and locations change dramatically. What's helpful for it is to pick up on what the weather's like, what the Golden Horn looks like, and the whole Bosphorus, which I get an idea of scale from pictures, but it's not the same as standing on the edge of the Bosphorus and looking out, which I did. Rouen in France features in this book, the final book, quite a lot. I haven't visited Rouen, I have been to France, but I found some very good descriptions of the siege of Rouen, which I'm covering, written, first-hand accounts written of it, which were so rich. I felt, I'll go to Rule, the walls are not going to be there. Yes, I'll see the river, but it'll be hard to pick out the buildings from the era. So I think it's helpful, but it's not vital to visit absolutely every location. You may not agree, Margaret, but...
Oh, I do actually, because there is a difficult job in working back from what is there right now to what was there in the period that you're writing about. But I'd like to thank you for chatting to me this morning, and I want to wish you good luck with the book. And perhaps you could say for everyone exactly where they can get all the copies of all 4 of the books in the series.
And the obvious place, of course, is Amazon. So all can be found there. You can order them from good bookshops and other online platforms. So it's available on ebook and print book. And the first in series is available as an audiobook. And I am about to start work on recording the rest. Okay. Not that I'll speak with an actor, a professional actor.
When you say ebook, is this Kindle, exclusively Kindle, or is it available on other ebook platforms?
No, the ebook is exclusive to Kindle.
Right.
Exclusive to Amazon. But the print books are available elsewhere, wherever you want to pick them up from. So
the easiest thing is to go onto Amazon and put in VEH Masters.
Yes,
and that will bring up the whole series.
Yes.
That's great, Vicky. Lovely to talk to you today. And as I say, good luck with the launch and with the ongoing sales.
Thank you, Margaret. Thank you very much.